Welcome back to another episode of the Anthony Murphy podcast. Today we're talking to Harley Tempest. Harley originates from Ballarat in Victoria, and today we're getting into the studio to talk about his backstory, how he became a PT, and then how he went on to build his own multi-gym business with his business partner. We go deep on health, we talk mindset, and we also touch on his very own podcast, GV Talks. So lots in this episode. Stick around, it's coming up next. Harley, thanks for coming in, mate.
Thanks for having me, Anthony.
Mate, I have been actually, and this is no word of a lie, right? I have been, Harley Tempest has been on my podcast guest list for way too long, mate. It's probably been 18 months or so. But, mate, it's awesome to have you in here and keen to have a bit of a chat.
Yep, I'm happy to be here. That's high praise, I feel.
No, it also shows that I should have just gotten this done way sooner. But mate, you're actually no stranger to a podcast either, by the way. So we'll just obviously acknowledge that. GV Talks, mate, absolutely smashing it with your own podcast.
Yeah,
what's it like?
What's special? It's got a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I can imagine.
One of my goals is to be a pillar in the community. All right.
Love that.
It's just a way for me to help share people's stories, and I feel like I'm a pretty good listener. So it's weird to be on the other side of the table today.
Yes,
being the speaker.
And it's so funny how people who host podcasts and then it gets flipped on them and it feels so weird. I'm actually being interviewed. Like you get into that habit of driving the show, and then when somebody's kind of throwing you the questions, it feels a little bit different. But mate, I'm super keen to have a chat. For anybody, and obviously locally around the Goulburn Valley, everybody, most people will know the name Harley Tempest. But mate, for those who don't know, those who are tuning in, let's go sort of right back to the start, mate. Where was because you're originally from Warrnambool, yeah?
Originally from Ballarat.
Originally from Ballarat. There you go. Got that wrong. Yeah. Talk to us about that, mate. Childhood, growing up, Ballarat. What was the go?
Yeah, so I was born in Ballarat. My mum wasn't really around too much. So she had her own demons, and she was really young when she had me. She was like 17.
Yeah, wow.
And my dad was young as well. Funny story, my dad really wanted a Harley Davidson. He was 18, had this long mullet, right?
Yes.
And he found out my mum was pregnant, and the money he was going to spend on the Harley, he saved to raise me and just called me Harley.
Well, sometimes, was he happy with that? Was that kind of even better than the bike?
Oh,
that's a tough question.
Yeah, that's a tough question. But yeah, so I was raised by my father and my grandmother.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so
awesome.
my father's mum.
Nice.
So she was the
also in Ballarat, obviously.
Yeah, all in Ballarat. The female role model for me, and
nice.
I loved her to death.
Yeah,
she taught me how to work hard. My dad taught me a lot of values, but he was a tough character himself.
Yeah.
I went to Ballarat High School, which was a public school, which I was very lucky to get into.
Cool. Yeah.
And I felt like if I had got into any of the other public schools, I might have had a rough time. Ballarat High School kind of had the good kids in it, and I was raised in the commission.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so often I'd go over to their houses on the weekend, and they lived in Alfred, in a nice part of town. They had 2-story houses. They had whatever they wanted.
Yep.
And I could see that.
Yeah.
And I knew that is what I wanted.
Yep.
But then I'd go back to the commission, where I'd have kids walking around the streets with a pet rock.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay.
And I was like, this isn't where I want to be.
Yep.
And I knew that from a young age. So,
see, even that, right? And this is one of the things that I love about podcasts and interviewing people and all that sort of stuff is just getting a sense of people's background and how they grew up and their environment, and there's okay, so on my side of the table, right, I'm the oldest of 8 kids, mum and dad still together, had that really solid, very lucky to have that really solid sort of family environment. But family is, it's not, family's different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
You had a family as well, right? It just looked a little bit different, right? So, but I think one of the things is, and it fascinates me is people who there's a whole conversation around, growing up with sort of everything that you could want, as opposed to maybe doing things a little bit tougher, and how that kind of like drives people to, hit new levels or achieve, things that they want to achieve in life. And like, you just bring it all back. You just peel the layers back, and it's super fascinating stuff. So yeah.
It is.
Oh yeah, mate. Massive question. Hey, and I think, actually, I saw a video just last night. Jordan Peterson was talking about two types of parents. There's two types of parents, right? And the whole premise of that video was, he's like, you have parents who are well off, and and generally older parents who are well off. They have a lot to give their kids. They want to protect them, right? And because there's maybe only one or two kids, so much of their time and focus goes into just the kids, right? As opposed to maybe younger parents who have more kids, the attention kind of has to get, spread over more kids. So his whole thing was like, how much do we protect our kids, right? And how much does overprotecting them, reduce their resilience, right?
Yeah.
So like that adversity, like that grit, how do you develop that, when you're in a really sort of well-off environment, I suppose? Like,
A very complex question,
we're
I reckon,
getting deep
growing
very
up.
quickly.
How do you think you'll answer it? I reckon the answer for my future kids will be competitive sports.
Yeah, 100%. And even your whole philosophy, right, around competitive sports and, the way that you, I suppose, like sort of the values that you instill in the kids, on winning and losing. Like, do you give an 8th place trophy, or do you say, look, mate, just wasn't good enough today, got to cop the loss, learn from it, move on, all that sort of stuff. Like, there's so many different ways you can approach that even as well.
Yeah, and I feel like there's still some sports that are untouched from that everybody wins.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
culture.
Yes.
Like I love wrestling, and there's a clear winner and loser. Do you know, it's a one versus one sport as well.
Exactly.
And that teaches
So true.
that teaches you a lot of hierarchy as well. Like in that sort of sport that I've done in the past.
Yep. Love that, mate. So let's just skip back, mate. So school, childhood, what sort of stuff you play competitive sport?
Yeah, well, I had a go at every sport while I was in high school.
Yep.
But you wouldn't guess by looking at me, but when I was at the start of year 12, I actually gave up school because I was fully convinced I was going to be a professional fighter.
Oh, here we go.
Right?
Okay.
Street fighter. Nah, so I was competing. One thing that definitely shaped me was my coach at the time. His name was John Campbell.
Yep.
And I was sitting there, I was like, where should my focus be? Should I be looking at getting a career? I was 18. And he stopped the class. He pointed around at everyone who was over 30 in the class, and he said, do you think you could have got where you are now if you had started when you were 30? Right? Okay. And a lot of those people in the room were like, yeah. So he said, what you should do from like 20 to 30 is go all in. Go all in on whatever your dream is.
Yep.
And at the time for me, I thought it was fighting.
Yep.
But it wasn't. It was actually training.
Yep.
So I was on the dole and I was just training all the time. Yeah. And I went to one of my Centrelink appointments and they're like, you need to do something with your life. And I was like, I don't know. Well, yeah, but they didn't believe me. They were like, oh, what do you enjoy? And I was like, I like training. Like, that's all I like. I like training. Yep. I like competing. And they're like, why don't you go do a PT course? And I said, okay, I'll give it a crack. But I didn't think it was going to go very far. Yeah. But whilst I was doing it, I fell in love with it. I went to the University of Ballarat and I did a TAFE course there. A year of full-time study to become a personal trainer. During that time, I crashed my car, which I didn't have insurance for. Ouch. And I copped a $10,000 debt. And I had the debt collectors after me, and they were ringing me and like, how much could you pay? And I was like, I pay like $20 a week. So I had no money. I was a uni student on the dole. Yeah, right? Exactly. And during this time while I was studying to be a PT, I actually got a job working on the railways. Okay. And it was paying big bucks, but it was in Melbourne. Okay, so I kind of...
It's always a catch.
Yeah, well, I had this cross in the paths. I had to decide if I wanted to keep on studying, right, which wasn't being any money, but I enjoyed it, or if I stopped doing that and I went and worked on the railways did that for X amount of time, paid off my debt, and I would be on good money.
Yeah.
And I feel like I thought about it over multiple time frames, and I couldn't see myself working on the railways for a long amount of time.
Yeah.
I don't even think my body could take it. I did it for a few months, and it was rough as guts.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a hard labour sort of guy. and I said, no, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to believe that I can do this. I'm going to stay at uni and finish my PT course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well done. So how old were you then when you finished the PT course?
About 21.
Yeah, cool.
20 to 21,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I mean, and that was going to be one of my questions, mate, is obviously with what you're doing now, like, where did the whole, training, gym, environment and passion come from? But obviously you've started to tell that story there. So qualified PT, straight out of uni, what happens then?
I was very lucky. In my class, there's only 2 people who got jobs.
Yeah, okay, wow.
And I got my job off work experience. But I just went in to work experience, and even when I was doing the course, I wasn't sure if I was going to get a job because I was wasn't very built.
Yeah.
Do you know, you think you have to be huge to be a personal trainer, right? I wasn't very built when I was 20, and I was like, nobody's going to want to get fitness advice off me. I'm just a scrawny little rat. So I wasn't convinced I'd get a job, but I went into this work experience and I worked so hard.
Yeah.
Extra hours, anything that needed to be done. But I did it not because I was expecting a return, but just because I felt amazing there.
Yeah.
So
you were in that environment that you wanted to be in.
Yeah, well, it's the weirdest thing, Anthony, because I feel like I was a super anxious kid.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Like, I was really nervous. I would never speak to a girl.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So I was you can picture it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But then when they gave me this red shirt at Snap, I'd put it on and it was my job to communicate to people.
Yeah.
And then that was kind of like a Superman cape for me. And I'd go and I'll talk to you and I'll talk to her and I'll talk to him. And then I was like, well, this is actually who I want to be.
That's right.
This is who I actually am. But it wasn't until I got that title and the shirt that I used those skills and I developed them. Yeah. And then I realized, oh, hang on a second. You don't need the shirt to be that person. Just be who you want to be. And so I worked at Snap for a couple of years, started as a sales assistant, I just took the road all the way to the top. So sales assistant, personal trainer, head personal trainer, manager, and and then I did that for probably 2 years. Yeah. And me and my best friend who worked there, who was the head PT then, decided we wanted to start our own gym. So we started working on that on the side. Yep. And the upper management got wind of it, and they came in and fired me on the spot, which I was like, when they fired me, I just couldn't believe what would happen. I thought it was so weird. Like, they didn't message me or anything. They came in. They never came in. Yeah, right. And they're like, we know what you're doing. You got to leave. Yeah. But they were very nice about it as well. Yeah, they were like, we always knew you were going to go do something for yourself. Yep. Yep. So that's when we started our first gym.
There we go. Awesome, mate. And so first gym, that was in Ballarat, obviously. Mm-hmm. What was it called? Still there today?
Yeah, so all our gyms have different names, which people always critique me on. But yeah, that one's called Iron Oak Australia. Okay, I came up with a name, but I don't like it at all. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, right. People I feel like we would do much better if it had a name like Origin Athletics. At least that's like a gym. It has something. Something to do with fitness. Yeah. But if you read Iron Oak Australia, you'd think it's a wood chopping company.
See, you can kind of yes, that definitely has a point. But then you look at a company like Apple that makes electronics, and you're like, well, you make the brand, what it is. But it is a fair point. It is a fair point. So you have a business partner, right? Yeah. With all the gyms. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sweet, cool. So you've got the gym in Ballarat. Mm-hmm. Gone out on your own with a mate / business partner. How do you start a gym? You have, you need a space, you need equipment, you need to start bringing in members. How do you get that ball rolling?
Yeah, well, we started really small.
Cool. Really,
really small. At the time when we were working at Snap, we were subcontract, so we had to pay $250 a week just to work out of there.
Yeah, right.
So between me and Josh, we were paying $500 a week. We could go rent a spot ourselves it would cost less than that.
Yeah.
And if we got a couple of members along the way, as long as we could run our personal training out of there, we wouldn't really be losing.
Yeah.
We did
good position to be in, hey?
Yeah. So we the first gym that we trained at. It's kind of amazing that anyone followed us there because it was just this tiny gym, and we made the squat racks out of wood. Right.
Sweet.
So
do what you got to do.
We had these huge pine logs, and we had these super sharp squat racks that, like, if your fingers got anywhere near, we were going to get sued.
Hey,
and
mate, it's a real gym.
Yeah. And we actually did so amazing there. We ended up getting 180 members, which was huge.
Wow.
It was huge for the size of it.
It would have been chockers.
It was chockers, yeah. Like when me and Josh started it, our intention naively was we don't care if it makes any money.
Yeah.
As long as we can run our personal training out there, we're not at a loss.
Yeah.
And we've got our own spot. We can be our own boss. Like when we worked at Snap, there was all these rules. You have to clean for 2 hours. You have to go up and talk to 20 members every time you're on shift. And there would be none of that.
Yeah.
So we got that up to 180 members. And funnily enough, Snap called me up again and they said, we're starting a new gym in Warrnambool.
Okay.
Do you want to go down there and open it and manage it?
Cool.
And they gave me a really good offer, and I moved down in 48 hours.
Mate. So the previous employer who fired you because you wanted to go out and do your own thing then calls you up and says, hey, we want you to go run a gym for us, and you make the shift in 48. That's obviously where I've got Warrnambool too from, by the way. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So packed up the bags?
You packed up the bags and left. Like, I don't think they wanted to fire me from Snap Ballarat, but it was a conflict of interest.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Like they have obviously procedures that they have to follow. Cool, awesome. Okay, so then we're in Warrnambool.
Yeah. What definitely helped me make that decision was something negative that happened. Like my grandma passed away.
Okay.
Right when I was speaking to them, and
wow.
And I was like, I've got to leave, brother. I can't. Yeah, I just wanted to be away from everyone. Do you know what I mean? Like I was kind of like a bit down.
Change of scenery.
I was like, I need to get out of here. I need to change things up. So that definitely influenced my decision to move to Warrnambool. But it was like I was running away from my problems, because when I went to Warrnambool, that was definitely the worst version of myself that I ever was.
Yeah. Okay. In what way?
Well, I didn't love my job.
Yep.
Like I hadn't dealt with my grandma passing.
Yeah.
And I think I was just acting out of character.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I was still pretty young, and I was doing things that, like, when I think back on, I'm not probably overly proud of. Nothing terribly bad, but just out of character things. Like I was being a bit self-sabotaging.
Yep.
And just embracing the chaos instead of getting things in order.
Yeah. Yep.
So like, although Warrnambool is a beautiful place, I reckon it's a beautiful place to live. I hated it there.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to start another gym with my business partner, and we moved to Shepparton for logistics. So I wrote in every single town by population.
Yep.
Under Ballarat, so Geelong, Bendigo, Melbourne were all out. Didn't look at those at all.
Cool.
Too competitive.
Yep.
But everything below that, I wrote in a list. Population, how many gyms, and what the average rent was for like the size of gym we wanted.
Yeah, nice.
And Shepparton was the best.
Yep.
The best option for us. So every place you go to, they say there's too many gyms. But
yes.
When I made the decision, Shepparton had the least. Like the least amount of competition for the amount of population that we had.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And since I've been here, 5 more gyms have opened up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like, it was obviously empty.
Yeah. And it's funny too, like, you probably, you could say that about any town, right? Like there's probably any town that's got, any sort of size about it has a few options in terms of gyms.
Yeah.
Even like, things like hairdressers and, bakeries and places like that, like they're sort of everywhere. It's kind of like, how can you have so many of the one type of business? But, there's plenty out there for everybody. And I think, obviously, the way you guys go about things with your gyms is a little bit different, or a lot different in some cases, to any of the other major chains or gym brands that are out there. So it's choice, right? It's like people are going to gravitate to something that they align with or feel comfortable with, or get the most value from. So how did that sort of what does make, your gyms different, I suppose? Like, what's the point of difference?
Yeah, well, like an obvious one is we've got the basketball court now.
Yes.
Yeah. But
that's a plus.
Kind of the way that I try to present my gym is not what it is, but who we are. Do you know what I mean? Like, I try to tell a story all the time about the people who come, about myself.
Yeah.
So there's something that you can relate to that's more than just we have the best treadmills.
Yeah.
And another thing about our gym is since I've been in town, every single gym has changed manager.
Yeah, right.
Do you know what I mean? So like, I'm still the same guy in the same place, helping the Shepparton locals and it's no fault of the managers, but I've worked in that situation where there's pressure from above to get people through the door. They'll just burn you out and then they'll get rid of you. Yeah. And it's hard to, so like I look at some other people's social media, and this might ruffle a bit of feathers, but I feel like it's hard for some other gyms to tell their story when they haven't been there the whole time, or they haven't built that long connection with their members. Like if you've only been there for 6 months, but the members have been there for 4 years, they feel like they own the gym more than you do because they've been there for longer.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And look, I can fully back up, what you've said there in your point of difference, making it more about, making the narrative more about the people at the gym and telling stories rather than, our gym's the best because, or we have the lowest fees or whatever, because, that's something that really struck me when you did open Origin and, you fired up social media, and from day one, it was much more about, it was, I don't follow, other gyms' social media, but followed Origins because there was that story behind it. Like, you're talking about the members, you're talking about your journey, you're talking about, the improvements, and the values as well, and what is expected of members, what's on, what's not, all that sort of stuff. That was very clear from day one. Yeah. And I think that narrative that came through really, it's brand, and just reinforced the fact that, our gym is different. We're inclusive, but there's standards, there's expectations, right? If you want to be a part of the family, this is what we expect. So I think that's a key point of difference. Yeah,
definitely. Like I've kicked members out before. I think other gyms would be hesitant to do that because there goes 10 members, 10 members that I'm going to have to replace. Yeah. And that's not going to look good to upper management. But like, if you think about it over more time frames, those 10 members that you leave in are going to cost you a lot more than the 10 that are going to leave right then and there.
It's like super similar to, even business, right? Like if you've got an employee who is, not good for the culture, or, is not towing the line or whatever, you need to do something about that. You can't just leave that person to keep having a negative impact, because it's just going to bring the whole business down. Same thing with the gym, right? If you've got people in there who are not towing the line, or aren't performing in a way they need to be performing, it's just going to make it a negative experience for everybody else. So you really do have to manage the house, manage the family. Yeah, definitely. Mate, how many gyms have we got now?
So I part own 4. So I've got 2 in Ballarat.
Wow, awesome.
1 in Stawell, and obviously the 1 in Shepparton.
In Shep, mate. Awesome job. What was 2020 like for a multi-gym owner?
Well, it could have been worse.
Yeah? Really?
Yeah. Oh, well, I think there was other people who probably had it harder than we did. Yeah. It's been very important for us over all our gym ventures is to not acquire any debt.
Yes.
So the only overhead we had was rent during that period.
Smart.
And we negotiated with the landlords, and we were either paying nothing or paying partial rent.
Just did what you had to do.
Yeah. And then the government looked after us quite well. I was getting $3,000 a month. That's more than enough for me to live on.
And exactly.
I didn't really have any overhead, so
well, that's good. Because I know, obviously, there were certain industries last year that just absolutely got obliterated. And health and fitness gyms was definitely sort of in that category, along with along with, hospitality and things of that nature. Anything that kind of required people to be in a place together in a group, did it hard. But that's awesome that you obviously set up fairly well and managed to ride the wave.
Yeah, I feel like it was a really complex time, and it was hard for me to have a strong opinion because I wanted to trust the people above us that were making the right decision. But then the people that I surround myself with screaming like you're making the wrong decision, and it's like it was just hard to come up with how I felt about the whole situation.
Yeah. And I think there's a few things, even just from our conversation so far today, mate, in terms of having the ability to make an educated decision, I suppose, and kind of stick to what you believe or, really stand for something. And I think that, along with the whole emotional side of things, like you mentioned when your grandmother passed away, obviously that's a really tough time for anybody. But being able to navigate these tough decisions in life is something that we're not necessarily, we really aren't often taught how to do that.
Yeah.
And I think from somebody who is well and truly ingrained in the health and fitness space, looking after yourself, looking after your body, your mental well-being, all that side of things. I mean, there's so much stuff that I want to talk about on this podcast moving forward, and having other guests on around, things like meditation and, health and diet and all that sort of stuff, right? Which is something that over the past probably 3 to 5 years, I've become a lot more interested in and a lot more involved in, because it's just not something that, I mean, I'm sure you probably found it the same. It wasn't sort of stuff that was talked about at home, or it wasn't it's definitely much more of a more spoken about thing these days, right? In terms of looking after your health, mental health in particular, the benefits of things like meditation or whatever it might be, right? A fit and healthy lifestyle. So do you kind of find that? Did you have much of that growing up? The whole looking after yourself, especially from a mental well-being side of things?
No, definitely not.
And it's such a massive part of life, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you've done so well in, where you've come from, successful business owner, you've built something, and building something that, you should be really proud of and a lot of people enjoy, right? And that's not easy. And I think, something that fascinates me now, being a dad and having kids of my own, is, that whole education process of just managing yourself as a human.
Yes.
Right? We go to school, we get taught history, we get taught maths, all that sort of stuff, which is sort of external. The internal stuff, how do you, work on regulating your emotions? How do you make sure you don't get burnt out? How do you, probably the whole food and diet thing is something that's a little bit more popular, but still, it's looking after yourself is such an important thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like it just hasn't been spoken about enough in the past.
Yeah.
It's critical.
Yeah, it's definitely been brought forward though.
Yeah.
I'm right into stoicism at the moment.
Yeah, right.
And just not getting too caught up on your emotions and controlling them, and not letting things get me down and stuff like that. But it's not even I'm learning anything new. It almost feels like it's being unraveled from within me. These things that I already know. Yeah. But this person who's thought about it a lot more than me has worded it perfectly. Yes. So it kind of wakes that up inside of me.
Yeah. Yeah. You're kind of light bulb goes on. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think that the whole conversation, moving forward, everything that happened with COVID, obviously last year, and obviously it's still going on and still pretty rough for a lot of people. But one thing that people are starting to talk about a lot more now is that there really wasn't as much of a narrative around staying healthy, looking after your immune system. Gyms were shut, but other things were open, like bottle shops or whatever it might be, right? We've spoken about all that sort of stuff before, but it's, it really comes back to, at the end of the day, just looking after yourself and how important that is.
And you're seeing all the statistics on that. Do you know what I mean? Like you're seeing like people who are fit and healthy, 78% less likely to go into intensive care if they got COVID. Like that's a huge amount.
Yeah.
That's a large majority.
Exactly. Solves half of the government's problems right there.
Yeah, what they should have done is shut down McDonald's. Do you know what I mean? Got rid of these fast food places.
That's right. That's right.
And people would have been forced to eat a bit healthier.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, mate, we could go down a very big rabbit hole there if we go down that conversation. But maybe another time. But it's so true. It's so true. And I think even myself, like full transparency, really struggle getting into the routine of looking after myself, right? From a fitness side of things, right? Like we're really good at home in terms of diet, eat well, organic, not a lot of takeaway, all that sort of stuff. But for me, the real struggle has been like prioritizing that health and fitness.
Yeah.
But again, like it's super clear to me now, even like especially towards the end of last year, sinking all of my time into like work and business and stuff. But you get to a point where I literally got home one night and I said to Loz, I was like, I just need to go for a run. Like I just feel so like crap, in my health. I just wanted to go for a run. Like my body was literally saying, you need to get out there and push yourself and work up a sweat. So that's something that I'm really trying to work on, is building that back into a daily routine. And is that something that you find you spend a lot of time helping people with? Like trying to improve that side of things?
Of course. And I try and make that people's focus instead of I want to get to X amount of weight or I want to do this, or do they have these specific goals? But I try and encourage them to enjoy what they do.
Yes.
And make it a habit. Like there's so many benefits to working out. And there's so many ways to get fit that you don't have to go to the gym these days. Like there's so many other ways you can look after yourself. I encourage people, like if they don't enjoy coming to the gym, go play team sports, go meditate, go to yoga, just walk 10,000 steps a day. It actually makes a huge difference. You don't need to.
Very true.
You don't need to necessarily go get a gym membership to be fit and healthy these days.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're not enjoying something, you're not going to stick to it. Like it's pretty simple. What other sort of stuff in terms of owning gyms, being a trainer, helping people, achieve their health and fitness goals? Like what is it about that keeps you going day to day? Like what do you really enjoy about that? Is it the people side of things now? Like do you really enjoy helping people, reach their objectives, or do you what is it that you enjoy day to day?
Yeah, I think I would answer this question different on different days.
Yeah.
But definitely a huge part of it is the connection I get with the people who come through the doors.
Awesome.
Like I get to learn people's stories. It's the same reason why I started the podcast, really.
Yeah.
Like I was sitting down one day with one of my clients, Sarah, and she just told me this amazing story about her life. Yeah. I've been training her for like a long time.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, right? Yeah, but it was just that point, our relationship got to this point, and now she was comfortable and felt secure enough to tell me this story about her life. Yep. And I was sitting there like on an emotional roller coaster, and I was so thankful that like through my work, I'd been able to help her get fit and build a relationship with her where we had a connection strong enough that she could kind of open up to me and just amaze me. And I feel like everyone has that story. Yeah. Do you know, everyone has something that they could teach me.
Yes.
And I can build those relationships through the gym. But it's the best job in the world. Like nobody ever comes in angry.
Yep.
Very rarely will someone come in angry.
Yep.
Everyone's like overly thankful for your help. Do you know, they did the work.
Yes. Yeah. They're still like, thank you.
They're like, oh yeah, I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it without you. And like,
I'm in a whole world of pain right now, but
there's so many cool things about being a personal trainer.
Just good vibes. Good vibes. Yeah. I'd love to segue into the podcast. Like, so, big plug to GB Talks, mate. The genesis of that podcast, literally just the reason that you talked about then, like people have got stories, you want to be able to share them, build connections. Is that literally it?
Yeah. And what I said at the start, like I plan to stay in Shepparton and I won't return to Ballarat, and I would love to walk around Shepparton and be proud of myself. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I've looked
Make an
after
impact.
I've looked after myself.
Yep.
I've looked after my family.
Yep.
And now I want to look after the community and make the place better
Love that.
in whatever way I can, whether
Yeah.
that be helping people with their health and fitness or
Yep.
like I think people learn through stories.
Yeah. 100%.
So if I can share stories,
Yeah.
like maybe we'll treat each other a little bit nicer, or do you know what I mean? Like you learn so much about people just by listening to the podcast.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, like, even, a few people that I've known, again, you know of people, but you don't know their story. Like, and there's so much fascinating stuff out there. And you can kind of, you could kind of say, we're all fairly ordinary people. Like, there's nothing super special about us, but when that story is told, it's like, wow, like, whether there's been some trauma or some adversity or, early success or, even if it's just a fairly standard kind of backstory, it's still oftentimes a really cool story, and people have had so many different experiences and, have learnt so much along the way. And I think, not only do I love a good podcast, do I love talking to people, I just feel like it's something that on that deeper level, again, we don't often go to. Like if we're hanging out with friends or family or whatever, like it's kind of like chit chat and, what's topical or, some drama that's happened in your life or something, but you don't really get that deep sort of backstory, right? And I think there's a bit of there's probably a bit of a lack of connection or depth with a lot of people as well. Like the interaction is fairly surface level. I think that's why like podcasts like GV Talks and the conversations that you're having with people, you go that extra layer deep. You get you get insights into people. You get more respect, better understanding, all that sort of stuff. So you could kind of just look at it and go, well, it's just a podcast having a conversation, but there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just facilitating their story. Like I feel like some people come in and they know they're not just talking to me. Yeah. Joe, and that's their chance to tell the community who they are. So they're not, I'm asking the questions.
Yes, so true.
But they see it as a chance for them to tell their story to a large amount of people who, it's hard to have deep conversations sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Like people are interested in people, but they don't know how to ask the right questions. That's a tough gig.
And oftentimes, it's also, it mightn't be the right environment or, all that sort of stuff. So creating that space, is really cool. And I think obviously, you've had great feedback, great success with the podcast
Very
already.
Happy.
And just early days, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, my goal is to get to 100 episodes and then reassess. Yep. Like I don't bring in any money from it. I just do it because I love it. Yeah. And the outlay that I put to host it, I feel like I've made this rule up in my head that I get my money back after I've done 100 episodes. If I give up before 100, I've lost money.
Yes. But I think like that's an interesting thing too as well though, like because, there mightn't be an immediate financial return right now, but the amount of, goodwill and again, respect and brand that you're building just by doing that, is going to have monetary value in a sense at some point anyway. Yeah. Like, you're really putting something into it. So whether the return is monetization of some kind of the podcast itself, or whether it's more members at your gym, or whether it's other opportunities that come your way because people hear the podcast and like what you do. Like, there's so much upside in that as well, which I think, a lot of people sometimes miss out on as well. They're like, what's the immediate financial return? But I don't know how it echoes. Like I do feel like I have got some other members who are a different demographic to our normal members at the gym who have been coming in. Yes. And I don't think they would say, I heard about it on the podcast, I listened to your podcast and I like what you're doing. But that is say that. Exactly. That is why they've come in. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's we talk about all the time, being a marketer is, the ability to kind of tell your story is what, because at the end of the day, everything just comes back to like emotion and human connection, right? We make purchasing decisions based off emotion. We select our friends based off emotion, like all this sort of stuff. It just all comes back to being primal humans. And even the most boring, bland industries if they were to speak up. And you're not even the podcast is not about the gym or training.
Yeah.
It's completely separate to that. But people get an insight into yourself. They get to quote unquote get to know you a little bit better.
Yes.
From the podcast, so that as you said then, they may not say it, but they're like, actually, I'm going to go check out Origin Athletics or any of the other gyms that you have, just because they've become more familiar with you. So, it just comes back to that familiarity principle, which is super powerful. Mate, what's on the horizon for yourself, the gyms, the podcast? What's the future look like? We're digging for some exclusives here.
I don't really have anything in the pipeline. We opened up a gym in February, which was tough. Like we organised that whole thing during COVID.
That was the stall?
And so that was our second Ballarat one. So it's called the Playground.
Yep.
Which is awesome. But in terms of things I've got lined up, we've been doing the 6-week challenges.
Yep.
And they've been unreal. Like another great thing, we actually spoke about it a little while ago, is being able to employ people. That's another thing that I'm very proud of. Like I've got these 3 coaches.
Yes.
And like we're a tight team, and I'm giving them the opportunity now to like have that dream. Like they want to be personal trainers, they want to help people, and I can help facilitate their dream now.
Yes.
So love that. keeping those challenges pumping is important for myself, important for the gym, but important for my new team as well. So that's been a lot of focus recently, and we kind of plan just to run them back to back. So that's something that I'm always working on. Lining up more guests.
Yes.
That takes a little bit of time.
Yep.
And one thing that I've done just recently that I'm kind of proud of is I've always been a bit of a workhorse.
Yep.
But about 2 weeks ago, I called it on Fridays. So now I knock off Friday at 8 a.m. Well
done.
So like I used to work Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Big days. But now there's other things that I want to focus on.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like I want to go on more adventures. I want to enjoy more life.
Even prioritizing the downtime. Right?
Yeah.
You literally again back to health and personal well-being and stuff. You can't flog yourself 7 days a week, years on years, because you're just going to get burnt out. You're not going to be the person that you want to be. You're not going to be able to achieve the things you want to do. So I think again, another important conversation that we should be having more of is prioritizing that downtime. So well done for making that decision.
Yeah, precisely what you just said. Like that Friday isn't necessarily for doing more things, even though that's what I said. A lot of it will be just for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. You need to look after yourself so that you can give the best when you are on. Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that it's definitely easier said than done. But even what I said before, with struggling to have, and again, you could say struggling, but not prioritizing, fitness in particular, made it was a sharp realization, I suppose, that, you can only get so much out. You have to put something back in. And if you're not, if you want to be quote unquote successful, run a successful business, be a great dad, all that sort of stuff, you can't, there's so many other bits and pieces that go into you achieving that. So for me, it really comes back to making sure that you do have that downtime. Because, the whole narrative, especially online, is always the hustle and the grind, and, you got to be on 24/7, all that sort of stuff. But at some point that's going to break. So, and I think a lot of people, struggle with that because it's, the world is always on, for example, but we kind of need to make sure that we are prioritizing our downtime as much as the uptime.
Why do you think people don't prioritize their health and the food that they eat when they know how beneficial it is?
Because it's so easy not to.
Do you think it's because they feel unfulfilled?
Yeah. And the why is not big enough on the other end, right?
Yeah.
So the why, for me, building a business, I can get out of bed at 4 a.m., and go to work.
You're the only person who beats me up. I walk past in the morning, I'm like, damn, he's got me.
The lights are on. No, but like literally, like, I love sleep just as much as the next person, but I can get out of bed at 4 a.m. because the why is big enough. But the why hasn't been big enough for me in the past to make sure that I'm getting to the gym or getting a run in or, that fitness. It hasn't been important because I've prioritized the business side of things, and that's been a bigger why. But the realization has been made now that I'm not going to be able to, be at my best and, perform on a high level unless I have that piece of the puzzle in place. Because I'm going to get home and I'm going to go, I feel like absolute rubbish, and I'm not getting the best out of myself. So I really do think it sort of comes back to the why. Yeah. Like, why eat healthy? It is easy just to go through Macca's drive-through. Yes. It's not easy to eat healthy, cook it. You don't have to like literally cook a meal, but like there's definitely healthier options. But oftentimes it's the why. Yeah. So hard to overcome your lower self. Yeah. For some people. True. Like, we're all about, it's funny, like we're all about ease and comfort and, not putting ourselves in situations that we might feel are threatening just as a human. Like, self-preservation is like where it's at. So putting yourself either out of your comfort zone or going to a greater length of effort in sourcing good food, preparing a meal, eating healthy and eating well, for most people for everybody, it takes more effort than fast food or takeaway or something that's not as healthy. But it's the why on the other end. Like, do you want to be healthy? Like, are you prioritizing the fact that you still want to be able to hit the pavement when you're 70 years old and not be, stuck in a wheelchair or something like that? Like, it's all that sort of thing. Yeah. And I think that's fascinating. I don't know, do you agree? Yeah, I agree. I think for the people listening, self-discipline is the best feeling in the world outside of human connection. Yep. So like I definitely feel like not succumbing to your lower self, finding your why, and getting through those first hard weeks, months, years. Yeah. You're going to look back on your life and feel very fulfilled. So true. So true. And I think, like, again, that's also something that from top down, we're not necessarily taught those things either. Yes. Like, for me, even, over the past couple of years since, I finished working at the family business, started my own business, all this sort of stuff, like, same thing for you, right? Went to uni, PT, started working at a gym, started your own, your own gyms, went on your own. We don't often, we might have goals, or we think we can get to, or we want to get to X point, right? Whether it's wealth or whatever it might be. But often we can achieve so much more than that, but we've got like these self-imposed restrictions or glass ceilings. And it's not until you like really have a crack and, you and I probably don't give ourselves, enough of a pat on the back from where we've got to. But, if we want to get to, if you want to own a national, gym franchise or have gyms all over Australia or the world, you can do that. Yeah. It might be something you want to do, yes. But like, people often kind of go, oh, I can't do that, or, I don't have enough money, or, something like that. Like, there's always some kind of excuse. But what I'm finding more and more is that if you really want to do it and if you really want to have it crack, like, where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah. Yeah. For me, because we both agree that's not something that we're taught. So I know where I learned it. I bring it all the way back to the start. When I was at school, and my friends had nice things and I didn't. Yeah. So I knew it was possible to do it. Yes. Because they had it. Yes. So I knew if I had the self-discipline and I found my why and everything we're talking about right now, that's where I learned that. Yeah. Like subliminally. Yeah. And that's like, the reason I brought that up earlier is because like you kind of do find that with a lot of people, especially like, even if you take, the social media celebrities that are sort of out there, right, and have amassed great success and great wealth and all that sort of stuff, there's a lot of people out there who have had like a really tough upbringing, like, and there's something that comes from that really drives them towards success, because it's like either they stay in a place that they don't want to be at, or they do something about it, right? And like, yes, you have to work on yourself and improve and educate yourself and all that sort of stuff, and put in the hard yards, but there really is something in that. Like, if you keep pushing, there really is sort of no limit. That's what I think.
Where do you think you learn it from?
Well, that's the really hard part. And I think that's, we're in a world today where you have to be able to try and, well, one, invest the time to learn, but also kind of weed out what's crap and what's not. There's so much information and misinformation out there that's also another reason why sometimes it can be just put in the too hard basket, because there's lots of conflicting ideas. There's so much information. Where do I start? But I think a really good tip from my experience is to try and surround yourself with people who can help you either get to another level or provide the info or provide the environment that you want to be in, right? So, sometimes the question is more about it's who, not how, right? Who do I need to surround myself with? Who can I learn from? Who do I trust? Who's done it before? Whatever it might be. Because that whole surround, you are the how do you word it? What is it? You are the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with the most, right? Like, so true. Like, you're a product of your environment. So if you're at A and you want to get to Z, who's at Z or who's closer to Z that you can surround yourself with, get that information from, and really help to push you along, accountability, all that sort of stuff.
As you get closer to Z though, it gets harder to find people to surround yourself with.
True.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, true, yeah.
Like,
because it's not the majority, it's the minority.
Yeah, as you start to rise, and then you'll take people with you, but then you're looking up to who's next for you to rise to, and there's less and less options. Yep. Like a lot of the people, like the saying you just said, the 5 people you surround yourself with, they're not my 5 friends in Shepparton.
Yeah.
They're my 5 friends that I talk to on the phone every week.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or even less, but still relevant, I think. The people that I now follow on social media, not the people who are just talking trash all the time, news, boring stuff. Like, I try and follow people who 100%. I want to emulate.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like a lesser version of the same thing. Yeah, you taking in these messages subliminally. So be careful what the message is. Yep. Is that how you want to live your life?
Yeah.
Is that so the person you want to be?
It's so true. And you could go on for days and days, because there's, you really kind of have to audit your world. I feel like you have to be aware of what you're consuming in the media, in social media, who you're surrounding with, all that sort of stuff. Another key thing, like self-awareness. There's so many. I think it's kind of like self-awareness kind of falls back into that category of learning how to regulate yourself and your emotions, prioritizing your downtime, prioritizing your health, all that sort of stuff. Which I'm excited for, because I think it's becoming much more a part of the narrative, especially with our generation and the younger generations coming up, which is a really positive thing, I think. And you're, especially the industry that you're in, really lends itself to that, because I feel like, and I'm sure you already do this, but health as a topic for people is not just about the gym, but it's also about what you're putting into your body, how you're looking after yourself. And I'm sure you talk to clients and friends about all that sort of stuff as well. It's not just one dimensional. Like, there's so many more ways that you can give value to people. Not just being a PT in the gym. Yeah,
I think the food that you eat is an extension of yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know how you feel when you eat good food. Yeah. Right? And you know how you're feeling when you're eating shitty food. Yes. Right? So you're not just you're the food that you eat. Yes. You're the room that you're in. Do you know what I mean? If the room is a bloody mess.
That's right.
How's your life look?
Exactly.
Probably not
it's
the
best. So true. It's so true.
So that's how I try and look at things now. There's a couple ways. So I try and explain that to people. And I think sometimes it's a bit much for them to comprehend And the other thing I tell people who are struggling to find the motivation to come to the gym is think of it like your job.
Yeah.
Right? You don't not show up to work because you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Just give me 45 minutes.
Yeah.
If you're really sick, you can take the day off.
Yeah.
But if you wouldn't call up sick to work, come to the gym.
Yeah, exactly. Love that. Good way to look at it. Mate, thank you so much for your time. Awesome chat. Where can people find out more about yourself, Origin, and GV Talks?
Yeah, so all the plugs are just the names of the business. So if you want to find Instagram, it's Harley Tempest. If you want to find Origin Athletics, it's Origin Athletics. And if you want to listen to GV Talks, you can find it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
Love that. Mate, before we let you go, what is one podcast or audiobook that you are really into right now? You've probably got a stack of them. What's one that's up there?
One that I haven't been listening to recently, but what I've been listening to recently is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, and he's an FBI negotiator.
Yeah, right.
And it's all about communication skills, and it's my second time listening to it, and it's blown my mind.
Love that.
And the second time I've listened to it, I've taken in so much more of it. The first time I listened to it, I thought, this is cool.
Yeah.
And the second time I listened to it, I've started implementing some of the things that he's been teaching.
Nice.
And I instantly see them working.
Yeah. That's cool. I love that. Hopefully, some people can take away things from this podcast and GV Talks and do the same thing, mate. Implement, execute, and live a good life.
Awesome. Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks for coming in, mate. Appreciate it. Cheers. So that's it for another episode. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. If you love the show, the greatest form of feedback you can give is to leave a review. It helps the show grow, it helps more people find it, and I would really appreciate that. Head over to anthonygmurphy.com where you'll find all the show notes and links for today's episode. And if you just want to stay up to date with me and see what I'm up to, head over to Instagram, Anthony G. Murphy, and say g'day. And I will talk to you in the next episode.